Smoker safety is an extremely important topic. If you don't watch it, you may have a forest fire named after you. I will not name names, but I do know several beekeepers that have lit their truck on fire, burned buildings, lit fields on fire, and burned entire apiaries over improper bee smoker handling. Smoker safety is an easy thing to accomplish. I'm going to give you some tips now on how to do that. So when you are dealing with your bee smoker after it's been lit, it's handy to have a plan for where that thing is going to rest while you're working, because you're not running your bee smoker a ton. You smoke the bees in the beginning of the session and then maybe during the session intermittently. A lot of times beekeepers have a telescopic cover that has a metal roof system to it. That's a handy thing to have. Once you take that telescopic cover off, you can have the metal side up, and you have a place there that is going to allow you to put your bee smoker down, and then that will allow that to keep from burning anything. I find it to be handy to cuff out a spot on the ground that exposes dirt, and that's a place where I rest my bee smoker when I'm not using it during an inspection. I think it's an appropriate thing to have a bucket of water around while you're working with your bees. It's handy if you get honey on your hands or you want to wash your hive tool, and it comes in handy when you're going to extinguish your bee smoker at the end of the day. You can actually dig a little hole in the ground and then dump your smoker fuel in there as it smolders, and then backfill it with water. That's an amazing way to put your smoker out. I want to talk about now how to plug that bee smoker. Lighting your smoker's kind of a little bit inconvenient. It's not necessary. If you know you're going to continue working bees throughout the day, then a lot of guys will actually plug their bee smoker. I love using a cork to plug the top of my bee smoker, but in a pinch, when I lose this little sucker, I will use a pine branch that I find on the forest floor, and that'll suffice. I know of a beekeeper that actually runs a wire through this cork and has it attached to his bee smoker so that he doesn't lose that little precious gem. That'll slow that burn down in there. It'll continue to allow it to just smolder in there at times. Sometimes it shuts it down completely. But if you're going to go from one location to the next, this is where the burning the truck thing comes in. If you're going to go from one location to the next, throwing a plug or a cork in the top of this thing and then throwing it in the back of the truck is better than not plugging it, but it isn't all the way there in my opinion. I like to, and I do this routinely, and I have several of these little metal boxes around. I like to put that bee smoker with a plug in it inside of a metal box inside the back of the truck, so that while you're rolling down the road, the air that's generated from the truck does not continue to ignite or to smolder that material in there and cause a fire that way. I like an old antique metal box. A lot of times those boxes were used for milk and butter delivery from the old days, and those sometimes are insulated little metal boxes. Those smoker boxes are the cat's meow, in my opinion, when you're dealing with smoker safety in the vehicle as you go from one location to the next. These are some of the things that I think are important to have inside of this metal box. You can have your plugged bee smoker. I also like to have an extra cork in there, and then that fits in there nicely. And then a lot of times I like to have a couple of different hive tools with me. They're kicking around in the bottom of that can. Anything else that you can think of that's not combustible. Here's a little queen clip. Throw one of them in the bottom of that. And then that can be closed up. While that bee smoker's plugged and smoldering, this box can then be bungeed to the sidewall of the back of your pickup truck. This system will keep you from lighting your truck on fire. One of the things that you want to look out for while you're running your bee smoker is having blue smoke coming out of the top of that can. That's an indicator that you're running low on fuel, and if you continue to engage the bellows on that smoker, it'll actually start to expel flames at times. Even an unattended plugged bee smoker may continue to smolder for several hours. This top of the can, because it's exhausting smoke and flames at times, gets extremely hot. When you go to change out your fuel or add fuel to it, there's a little loop on most of these smokers, and you can lift that up and successfully get that open, but it's very easy to touch your skin to the surfaces here that are extremely hot. Some of the time, for whatever reason, you might think that you're going to just go pick up a bee smoker by the can. I did this last year. I'm not proud of it, but I scalded all of my fingers in the palm of my hand one day while I was working with bees in South Carolina. Be extra cautious of that. When you consider your bee smoker, we talked about it before, I don't prefer having a guard on your bee smoker because of the weight of it and it's cumbersome, but I would say that it's an appropriate thing to consider having for an option on your bee smoker because it gives you that extra layer of protection where if you did grab it or if you put it up against something, it gives you a little bit of a break from that heat. I hope you enjoyed that video on smoker safety. If you learned anything from this video, I would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe.